You had your chance and then you blew it.
That is the most absurd statement of the year.
Nice. Nice.
Oh, baby.
I'm in my zone, I'm feeling it.
Live from West St. Paul Studios, it's time for MinneZona Sports Live with DJ Mattie C and Paul the Shield Vold.
And this is MinneZona Sports Live. We are back, yes! Episode 229 episodes. Who would have thunk? Not me, as Paul Rudd would once say, but without further ado, I'm your host, DJ Mattie C, a.k.a. Matt Callahan, a.k.a. Callie, a.k.a. Mattie C, etc., and all the way in Granite City Studios in St. Cloud, Minnesota, Paul Voldy, Shield. What's going on there, Shield?
You know, I really hope my day finishes a lot better than how it started. Of course, with the second winter now making its full effect across much of the viewing area in the Minnesota region, I started off my day by cleaning off my car. In some way, shape, or another, I ended up reaching for my keys in my pocket and ended up somehow with a full jacket pocket full of snow. And I just said, it's going to be one of those days today. And I really hope it doesn't end up being that way. Well, we've got the show. Lots been going on here this week since we last were on, and we've got a lot to cover. So hopefully things are going to be better here tonight.
That's the plan, and that's what we are here to do, is to entertain our zoners and somewhat entertain ourselves.
That's right.
But like you said, a lot to talk about, especially with the hat I'm wearing with the Minnesota Vikings hashtag skull, the whole kit and caboodle. There's a lot to say about our Minnesota Vikings. Free agency is upon us. A week from today, officially, free agents will be able to sign contracts with new teams and new beginnings, trades. There's been a lot of trades, a lot of extensions happening as well today. People want out, people are released. I mean, it is insanity. But one of those guys who we really don't know where it's at right now is one, Sam Darnold, a.k.a. BDD, as we like to say here on this show. Let's see what happens. We will see what happens. We'll talk about the situation with Sam Darnold and the Minnesota Vikings and, what we expect coming up here. So, and also we got to talk about those Timberwolves. They're playing right now as I am looking at the score, 65-56. Wolves are up over the Hornets. Do not lose to that team because they are terrible. So, Pups, let's get it done. Let's get that
Figure it
done.
out.
But another thing we got to talk about, Ant and the I almost said WNBA referees. The NBA referees. There's been a lot of controversy surrounding that specifically. So, Ant and the NBA referees. I mean, it's a ongoing battle, and that's another thing we got to quick talk about too. So, and also Voldy. Tonight we're doing Infinity rankings, but you are going to join me with an Infinity Gauntlet as well. 6 stones, which means, guys, we have 6 free agent wants for the Minnesota Vikings. We ranked them.
Damn.
We'll go through them tonight, and also that gives you the chance to throw out yours as well. Let us know who you would like to see in purple come Monday/Tuesday or Wednesday, officially per se. So maybe during that week, who knows? But a lot to talk about with that. And then we got ARA. We've got a plethora of ARAs tonight. We've got the Niners Trading Debo to those commies, the Washington Commanders. Talk about that. Rodgers to Vegas? Question mark. Interesting. We will talk about that. Manfred is now finally open to reviewing the Rose family's reinstatement bid. Wow. It only took them until he died, which is sad in itself. We will talk about that. Kyrie is out for the season, torn ACL for the Dallas Mavericks. If things couldn't get any worse, they just do for the Mavericks at this point. And then, to round things off, no hard knocks for UNC football and Bill Belichick. So we will chat with that. And as always, Shield shoutouts tonight. So, with that being said, Voldy, I say we get right into it. Let's get it going with some Tater Tot Hot Take.
Fresh out of the oven, it's Tater Tot Hot Take.
All right, it is time for some Tater Tot Hot Take. Tonight we start off with one BDD, and you can figure out what that means at some point here. We'll probably mention it. Sam Darnold. There's been a lot of controversy. There's been people that say Sam Darnold's coming back. Sam Darnold's not coming back. No, he is. No, he's not. No, he is. Yes, he is. A lot surrounding that. The Vikings decide not to franchise tag Sam Darnold this past week. The deadline was it yesterday? Yeah, it was yesterday. For the Minnesota Vikings to do that. People were hoping for a tag and trade. That will not be happening. There's been tons of reports, and a lot of the national media are saying what the Vikings should do, this and that with Sam Darnold. They should put, a bunch of money into it. They shouldn't put a bunch of money into it. This is a whole conversation that has been nonstop for the past week or so. Maybe even 2 weeks. Maybe even after the season. Who knows? So, Voldy, real quick, let's just, go with the obvious. What are your thoughts on the Vikings not franchise tagging Sam Darnold? What do you got?
I see it from a couple different angles. The one being, I'm not surprised that they didn't tag Sam Darnold, just straight off the fact that I think that they're looking at possible options of bringing in a veteran while still holding on to, obviously, J.J. McCarthy. All signs are pointing to, as of right now, that J.J. McCarthy is going to be the starting quarterback week 1 for the Vikings. And who they have behind him, is it going to be Nick Mullins? Is it going to be somebody else who's also on the free agent market? Maybe a little trade action on top of it. That's what the signs are pointing to right now. But I'm also a little bit upset because you now know that the Vikings, if they want to go get Sam Darnold, they're gonna have to shell out the dough for it. And that's one thing that the Vikings, they have the luxury of having a little bit more help with the salary cap this year with some of those contracts off the books, but there are a lot of other areas that need to be addressed, especially when you have like your whole defensive secondary that was starting last year. They're free agents. You could use a little bit of help on the offensive and defensive lines. Like, how much are you willing to put into a quarterback that maybe will not see the field in 3 years' time, basically, if all things go correctly with J.J. McCarthy transitioning to the NFL level. Right now, when I saw it, I wasn't surprised that he didn't get franchise tagged, just based off of the Vikings. They even said, too, like Kevin O'Connell even came out and said he earned that Sam Darnold has earned the right to be a free agent. Not surprised by that, because I'm sure that franchise tag was going to be viable for somebody else on the team, but the Vikings decided not to use that franchise tag. So I'm not overly shocked by that happening. Just wish that we'd get a little bit more clarity and, kind of lock things down. We've seen a few big deals as of late that I just wish that the Vikings would go ahead and, lock Sam Darnold up sooner than later in that regard.
Well, the question that still remains is if Sam Darnold is looking at this market and or his representation from his agent and other people involved. One thing I did see, he was at that golf event thing. Do you know what that name is? It's like TGL or something like that. It's on ESPN and with Tiger.
The TGL.
Yeah. So he was there, and he was doing some betting and whatnot. So you almost want to say that it doesn't seem like he's too worried about it. He's kind of letting the process go about it. If I'm the Vikings, and the Vikings are no dummies. This last year, the Minnesota Vikings had a phenomenal, and I quote, a phenomenal free agency.
Phenomenal.
Phenomenal. Andrew Van Ginkel. You add, technically this was later on, Stephon Gilmore coming in and doing a fantastic job in the D-backs and the D-back room as well. This is something to where the Minnesota Vikings are going to be able to have free reign in what they want to do with that money. Now, the thing that I said on this show and to other people as well is I'm still very big on the Vikings are going to want to roll with McCarthy. Okay. How do you want to approach that? Well, there's a couple ways you could. Sam Darnold, I think, could very well look at this market and say, I don't know. These teams don't seem hell-bent on trying to, overpay and whatnot. Right. And what situation that I had in Minnesota where I have the coach, I know the players, I was a year into the system and we went to the playoffs and everything like that. Like that, there should be, as the gauntlet falls on me. That was pretty interesting. Anyway, we're losing my mind.
Figure it out.
Yep. So the main thing is that Sam Darnold, it doesn't seem like teams are biting. The Raiders, it doesn't seem like it seems like they want to go a different direction. It sounds like the Rodgers thing has been floating around these past couple days. They didn't get a deal with Stafford. It seems like he wants to stay put in L.A. with the Rams. So it's an interesting situation because if Darnold's like, I don't like this, then I'll just go with Minnesota. Now, the one thing, and I don't want to be a Debbie Downer about this specifically, Voldy and or zoners, it's tough to go to that $30 million range and say, well, this is what we're going to give to you. I am not I don't think that they should pull it and go from that perspective and put $30 million right there. I'd be okay if the Vikings said, here, $20 to $25 million, here's, but here's the deal. You're fighting for your job here. Now, Darnold has a strong case to say, wait a minute, I led this team to a, awesome record, this past year, 14-3. What the hell happened? Well, let's look at Week 18. Let's look at the playoff game. Sam Darnold was really bad. Not all his fault, but he definitely was a deer in the headlights for sure. Right. And I'm no NFL coach. I don't claim to be an NFL coach, but that is concerning. That's why this is so interesting to me is because he was kind of expecting there to be more people out or more teams being like, we got to get in and get him. Another team that could be interested is Tennessee. I mean, do they want to go and make the reach on Shador, or do they want to draft Cam Ward, Jackson Dart? I have a hard time believing that because Will Levis is just not the answer at all. Yeah. And Mason Rudolph for sure isn't as well. I could see a team sneak in there and, get a deal done. But if Darnold says it's $30 million and above or I walk, I say the Vikings say then walk. Because you have a situation with McCarthy, and yes, he had the injury. Yes, he didn't have the best, or yes, he had one of the better teams in college. He had a good offensive line, running back, things like that. But when he needed to make a play, he made that play. After something bad happens, he bounces back, right? So I think McCarthy should be the starter for the Minnesota Vikings come week 1 at this point. But if the Vikings find a way, and again, when they're quiet, it means that they kind of have a plan in place. They're not chomping at the bit and, trying to move guys here and there. They're being very patient. They're being very smart about this process. If Sam Darnold comes back, let's go. Let's play. Let's see what happens. But I can't see them going up above $30 million. Now, to add to that point as well, there are key pieces these Minnesota Vikings need, Voldy. They need interior offensive line. O-line, 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 as the Curve Doctor says. This is so key, and we will talk about this with Infinity Rankings tonight as what guys they can target to bolster that. And, I mean, are they going to do they have a plan? Are they going to, release some guys to free up more cap space? They're projected like $60 million. I mean, it's insane. Now, if you are able to land one of those big guys and be able to protect McCarthy and or Darnold, possibly, then that's a good thing. Now, well, what are we going to do if McCarthy gets hurt or he doesn't play well? Well, you did have Daniel Jones as a backup, and he moved up the practice squad and everything like that. Kevin O'Connell's proven he can turn, careers around and whatnot. I don't see a big issue with them going McCarthy and then having Jones as a backup. You never know what could happen. Right. So I'm kind of in that camp. But I'm saying this, though. I am not opposed to Sam Darnold coming back, only under the right deal. Because there are so many needs. That interior defensive line, which we'll talk about more as well, is super key. So the question that I ask of the zoners, and you, Voldy, as well, is this. Is it your belief that Sam Darnold will walk and, find a place elsewhere, or do you think it is with the Minnesota Vikings? What do you think?
You ask me right now, and I say that Sam Darnold is going to walk. I think you look at the free agency right now in the quarterback department and also what's coming up with the draft. A lot of people saying that this quarterback draft is very underwhelming. Of course, Cam Ward, you got Shadur, Jackson Dart kind of lit things up a little bit for himself, helped his draft stock at the combine. But then you look at the free agency pool, and for Sam Darnold, he is looking at a very strong case for him to be, a top money getter just based off what we saw from him last season and how that can translate to a big payday. But if I'm Sam Darnold, I'm looking at it from this situation. Do I want to get paid or do I want to win? That's kind of the thing. For all the years that he was with elsewhere, he was with San Fran, he was in Carolina, he started off with the Jets. Not a lot of winning. And, of course, when he was in San Fran, he was the backup as slated to be the starter, but then got taken down by Brock Purdy. Again, do you want to win or do you want to get money? You can always make more money in the future. But if Sam Darnold is smart, he will take the deal that the Vikings will give him. And I feel like that the Vikings won't shortchange him based off of what we saw last season. How he was able to take into that system and be very comfortable and ultimately lead the team to, a great season, the best record possible that they could, even with it being a wild card berth, finishing second in the division behind the Detroit Lions. I think that it would be smart for Sam Darnold to come back at that right deal, kind of a little bit of that hometown discount. But I would not be surprised if Sam Darnold did walk. So as of right now, I say Sam Darnold's going to walk because there are teams out there that need a quarterback, and I feel like they'll shell out the big bucks just to get a quarterback that was quite successful compared to their quarterback that they had last season.
And I agree. I'm in the same boat as you. I would not be upset if they went and said, no, we're okay with him,
Right.
Coming back and under the right, tag and whatnot. But I think they might have to do some restructuring to some contracts. And again, it's nothing against the guys who have these big contracts. But right now, TJ Hawkinson has a big contract that I feel like they can manipulate a little bit, bring that down just a titch, and see where it goes from there. And then the big question is Harry coming back? Is that going to happen here in the near future? A lot, and Bynum. I mean, even throwing that in there as well. So this is like I said, it's an interesting situation. And if Sam Darnold leaves, I just want to say, too, I almost want to do an apology segment because we all believed that this guy was not going to do it for the Minnesota Vikings. Like this, he won't do anything. No, he showed us something, and I give him claps. I give him claps, and he worked his ass off. KOC went in there and gave him this awesome confidence. The thing that scares both of us, I feel, is that the playoff type of game and the playoff game itself. I mean, Week 18, the playoff game was just abysmal.
Woof.
Nothing could get going. It was just awful. So I kind of look at it from that perspective and thinking like, well, you have that in the back of your mind and you're like, do we want to take that risk? Or was this just an issue of we just, didn't play well in general? Maybe they point the finger at the O-line. I don't know. This is a very fluid situation here. So I agree with you, Voldy. I think this is I think he probably is going to walk at this point. I don't want to, say that it's not going to happen, him coming back. I still think there's a good chance of it happening. And, the thing is are you okay with looking over your shoulder a lot? Because the Vikings and the way that KOC and the coaching staff and the players have talked about J.J. McCarthy, there's a lot to like about this young man. So this we will keep an eye out for, and we might even talk a little bit more with Infinity Rankings. So, and also Mike Florio was on with PA today. I read something to where he thinks that if Darnold comes back, then McCarthy would want out to be traded. And this I say to Mike Florio, you are a fraud. Shut up. I mean, good Lord. You can't just expect and be like, well, if you're bringing back Darnold, McCarthy wants out. Again, putting more fire to the flame when it's not even there. Good Lord. Anyway, so, big week next week, and we'll talk more about it in Infinity Rankings. All right, let's move on to Anthony Edwards, our guy. We love Ant here on the show. He has been in some interesting conversations with the NBA referees. He had his 16th technical, threw the ball into the stands, and he was, in fact, suspended. He's been hit with fines left and right, and it's just not good. The Minnesota Timberwolves finally had to sit down with him and said, you got to stop this. You are, affecting the team, your cost. I mean, they played the Jazz the next night after he got, that was when he was suspended. Oh, by the way, they lost that game by 1, even though they should win, even without Ant. You can't cost your team. It's that simple. And Voldy knows this. Voldy knows this. I know this. Everybody knows this. If you are going to be a problem for your team and you don't control yourself, this is the outcome it presents. Right. So, Voldy, I asked this of you and the Wolves right now. Quick update. 65-58. It is right. They're right in the third quarter. So we'll keep an eye on that as well. So, Voldy, your thoughts on this whole ordeal with Anthony Edwards and the NBA referees? What do you got?
Well, right now we're at a point here with the NBA. They are looking for a new face of the league within itself. Obviously, LeBron quite possibly on his way out. Steph Curry is on the downside of his career, but who's going to be that new young face to step up and take the reins as the face of the NBA? I mean, a lot of signs are pointing towards Anthony Edwards, but he's come out and flatly said, I don't want to be the face of the league. I just want to come out here and I just want to ball. But at some point, as you mature as a professional athlete, something like that, being the face of a league and also trying to be a role model, if you will, is going to have to be a main factor of why you play the game. Yes, coming out here and just playing ball is great, but if you don't do something with it, then why are we even in it to begin with? Obviously, winning championships is the ultimate goal. But connecting and being an ambassador of the game is also another facet of the NBA game that is somewhat overlooked in many different areas. And I just feel with Ant and all these antics, as we've seen, no pun intended there, that we've seen this season from him. I just don't know how much longer this can last before some serious, ramifications come out of it. I don't want to say suspensions on top of what we've already seen. Obviously, the one game, multiple fines. I know that I said earlier this year, keep racking up the fines, see if you get $1 million in fines this season alone. But now we're dealing with a situation here to be, it's costing the team wins. I mean, we saw it in the game, most recently with Oklahoma City and him getting, ultimately, taken out in the game, and multiple times too. We've seen this throughout the season, him having foul trouble and having to sit, and the Timberwolves have suffered dearly. And this could definitely affect his stance with the team and becomes a bit of a, behavioral issue. Obviously, the post game, interviews and everything, him swearing on TV and everything. I mean, let's be honest too. If the game is going to be on, FanDuel Sports Network, that's not real TV. If this was cable, that's a different story. Look, everything's on a streaming platform nowadays. It's basically the internet. There should be no rules at that point, unless you're showing stuff on, ESPN or whatever. It's the game of the week on TNT, ESPN, ABC, whatever. Then there are some rules on top of it. But if he's just having a conversation with, whoever on the sideline with FanDuel Sports North, let them fly. Let the expletives fly. Do what you need to do to get the point across. But I just have a problem. It's not really so much a problem with the refs. I'm having more of a problem with Ant, and just when is it going to kick in, and when he's going to realize that, you can only do this for so long before people say, well, this guy's a diva or whatever. He's a problem. He's a locker room problem.
I don't think. Well, for one, there's a lot. I have a lot of opinions on this. For one, I think with Ant not getting the calls, excuse me, I think he's jealous of the way that Doncic, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, LeBron, even in that.
Right.
He's not getting those. He should. I mean, he should. Don't get me wrong. I think Ant has a legit reason here. I really do. And the Wolves fans calling out Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, calling him a free throw merchant, I think is warranted in that fact, because he is. And you can't touch the guy, and with fouls and things like that, hence why big stat lines for him. Not saying he's a bad player by any means, but man, I mean, just throw on more points, why don't you? But when you get to the point of, you're getting to the point of no return, you're not going to get the calls because you keep complaining about it. The refs now know his reputation and how he, if he doesn't get a call, he complains about it. I mean, Cat was the same way. Think about it like that, too. Cat kind of had that same thing. And with the Knicks, and, I know he's dealing with some personal stuff right now, and we, throw prayers out to Cat for sure. Don't know what's going on. and whatnot. But, I mean, from speaking from, when Cat was here and whatnot, he was, always complaining to the refs, and he had that reputation. We can't have that reputation with Anthony Edwards. He has to, control himself in some instances. Now, using expletives and, this and that, it's like, well, if Ant can't drop an F-bomb, why can LeBron? Why can, Anthony Davis? Why can Luka? Why can, all these other guys? It's like, why are they just picking on Ant for, saying, cussing and stuff like that? Look, there's all these other players that do it. You don't find them. So this, and complaining about the refs after games and pointing the blame and whatnot, Ant wants to be that guy of hey, I want that reputation. Well, I think he's got to earn it a little bit more if you want that. And Gilgeous-Alexander, I don't know why every referee's on his side on, specific fouls and whatnot. But that's a whole different conversation. But I do agree from the fact of it'll be a problem until he controls himself. The Wolves had to sit down with him, I'd assume, and say, you have to stop doing this. You can't, hurt our team here. Is it going to become a locker room problem? No, because Ant is well-liked. The guys respect him. They know it's pretty much his team right now. And you know what? Ant's just got to do just a little bit more of maturing, right? We all at some point have to do that, right? So there's a lot to be said specifically with this situation. I just wish Ant would just kind of take it, just kind of take it at ease. And he caught himself the past night, I believe, as well. So there's a lot to be said specifically with Ant, kind of turning the corner, if you will. It's not like he can't, after a three or a big shot, he can't, do the three thing and whatnot. But he can do that. Just don't complain to the refs. Just ignore them. Don't cuss at them. Don't drop anything. That's why, you have to be careful specifically when you have Ant, heated like that, as we would say. So, and we welcome Tate into the fold as well. Another thing that I want to bring up, too, is that now that this has been addressed, can we expect Anthony Edwards to stop getting technical fouls the rest of the season? Voldy, what do you think?
No. I think just with his intensity and competitive level for the game, I don't see it going away anytime soon. I just wish that he will be smart about it, is kind of the thing, and kind of realize that at this point now, with all of the technicals that he's gotten, obviously they're racking up to a point where it is going to be costing him dearly as we come down the stretch here into a possible playoff push for that, and him being smarter with playing the game itself. I feel like that competitive drive is still going to be there. Now it just needs to be smart and definitely tone them down for sure. But at this point, he's racked up a hefty amount of technical fouls, so I know that refs are going to be looking at it for sure.
So I should have looked at the score update before we went off. But the good news is that with Anthony Edwards, he's got off that suspension, and I think he's got the message that got to watch it. You don't want to turn into Draymond. Don't turn into Draymond. And I agree with Lucas here. He just commented in. He says he needs to get that Shea whistle. Yes, he does.
Yeah.
He deserves it. If you're looking for that face of the league and whatnot, and it's like, well, he said he didn't want it. It's like, well, yeah, what are you going to say? Like, oh, yeah, I want to be the face of the league. And, everyone's got an opinion on it. Look.
Right.
Just let Ant be who he wants to be, and if he's not getting that, he should be getting that Shea whistle, because every time you see Shea Gilgeous-Alexander, oh, I was fouled, I got hit on my wrist, just a titch, like a finger just nicked me there.
Right.
I don't get it. Like, what's up with this guy? You know, and I feel like he's kind of come out of nowhere too. I mean, it's crazy to me. It really is crazy to me. And, you know, even he knows it. He laughed at it when the Wolves fans were chanting that he was a free throw merchant, which I think is brilliant, by the way. Well done to the Wolves fans for that one. So, yeah. So for Ant, I would agree. I think he, you know, there might be a technical here and there. Does it start over when the playoffs start? That's my question. You know, I don't know. We'd have to look that up. We'll have to look that up at some point here. So, anyway, that'll do it for Tater Tot Hot Take this week. And Voldy, it's Infinity Rankings. We are doing our free agency frenzy wants for our Minnesota Vikings. We have compiled a list. Voldy is joining me for Infinity Rankings. With this, we will give you our ranks. We'll kind of explain why and kind of go from there. So, zoners, feel free to join us on that. Throw out some players that you would be interested in as well for our Minnesota Vikings as they enter free agency here coming up on Monday and whatnot. So, with that being said, since we do have Tate here, I'm sure he might like the lights of these infinity stones, as you can see, and the sounds. Voldy loves the sound, don't you, Voldy? The sound of the infinity.
We'll go with that.
Okay, fair enough. So let's get it going with some infinity rankings.
While many have power rankings, none have captured them all. It's time for Mattie C's Infinity Rankings.
Lucas says, oh man, my kid would go nuts for that.
Right?
Let me tell you, my nieces went nuts for this thing. I will say. They liked the Infinity Stones. They're like, oh, it's very colorful. And let me tell you, my oldest niece, Emma, she liked pressing this because this is what turns on the sound and whatnot. You know, it is what it is. So, with that being said, I wish I could, you know, do this whole thing with it on, but, you know, my arm gets tired and all that stuff. Mm-hmm. So, with that being said, Luke says, let's go. So, it's 4 Infinity Rankings tonight. Voldy, I will start us off, if you don't mind. The first, so here is my list, and I will explain each of them. We'll start from 6 all the way to 1. Let's show them. Let's do the drum roll. You know, I feel like we haven't used that in a while. Let's see if I can find that. There it is. And there we go. Here are my 6 Infinity Stones regarding our Minnesota Vikings, who I would like to see them target in free agency. So, the Minnesota Vikings at 6, there is a guard that I feel like the Vikings are interested in. There hasn't been a lot said, and they've surprised us with some of these guys before. Patrickmekari. Patrickmekari has played for the Baltimore Ravens these past few years as well. So we have that going for the Minnesota Vikings as a possibility. Patrickmekari is a very viable option, I would say, for the Minnesota Vikings. It would be interesting to see if the Vikings would be willing to go out and getting a guy like Patrickmekari on the offensive line, because they are in dire need of guard help for the Minnesota Vikings. So Patrickmekari, I feel like, is a guy that they could bring in. I don't think it would cost them too much, but I also know too that, hey, you know what? Let's see what he can do. Let's see if the Vikings are like, you know what? We're fine with not getting the top guy, who I will talk about in a second as well, now, because Trey Smith is now gone. And still with Kansas City. I believe he got the franchise tag, if I'm not mistaken. So we got
Yeah,
that.
Joe Tooney got traded to the Bears. That
Correct.
was also a guy from Kansas City. Yep.
Yeah, another one, Jonah Jackson, going to the Bears as well. So the Bears addressing their O-line needs as well, especially today with them getting Joe Tooney, former Patriot, by the way, as Voldy knows.
Yep.
So we got that going for us. But I think Mekari would be a guy that would really help out instantly, and I think he'd be an upgrade over, no offense to Reisner, but I think he'd be an upgrade over Reisner and obviously Ed Ingram if they go in that route too. So
Yes.
Patrick Mekari, Baltimore Ravens, they have a pretty damn good offensive line too, so I think that's one guy to look at. Let's go to number 5, djreed. Now djreed, the Vikings do know quite well, and he's a guy that, kind of gave Justin Jefferson some fits, none the least. And it's not to say that he can't, do that or kind of, give fits for our NFC North foes or the NFC in general. But I think that this is a guy, if they lose A, Byron Murphy, or B, and they're probably not going to bring back Gilmore. I'd be cool if they did, but I don't know. He's getting up there in age, too. So djreed, I feel like, is probably on his way out in New York, and he could have a chance to win here in Minnesota. Now, the one thing that I want to be wary of djreed, a lot of penalties. He's very handsy. And that's kind of how the Jets, are. They're very physical at the line of scrimmage, and they can get a little too handsy, a lot of flags, whole kit and caboodle. We don't want that, but I think the Vikings lack a little physicality in some departments with the secondary. I think he would be a perfect fit for what Flores and the defense wants to do. So djreed, I would like to see in purple. Number 4, Jevonholland. Now, this one kind of depends on what the Vikings decide to do with one cambynum and or harrisonsmith. Is Harry coming back? Is he coming back, and the Vikings are not willing to pay him, or is he just, or is he not coming back, retiring, that whole deal? Now, this is a guy that I feel like could be a perfect fit for the Minnesota Vikings. And this works out perfectly because you have a guy like Jevonholland back there in the secondary with the D-backs, with the safeties and whatnot. So I kind of look at it from this perspective of, look, if you can't nail down both of your top, safeties, go with Jevonholland. He's worked with Flo before. He's talked very highly of Coach Flores as well. So I think that's a guy that you got to kind of look at here and say, let's go with Jevonholland. So number 3, Aaronjones. Now, I kind of was keeping some Vikings off this list and whatnot just because I feel like, of course we want him back, like a Byron Murphy, like a cambynum as well, like a harrisonsmith too. But I think for the running back position, this is a guy that has gotten over 1,000 yards, has been great in the running game. The Vikings lacked that 2 years ago when they had Alexander Madison. They were hoping he kind of filled the void of Dalvin Cook. Didn't really help. So now that the Minnesota Vikings have, nailed down a running back that they know they can trust and whatnot, I think Aaronjones is a guy that I would want back. Not to say that the Vikings would not be interested in a running back. I think they will be in the draft. I think they could be looking for a potential running back here as well to back up Aaron Jones. Aaron Jones in running back years, and I know this sounds crazy, but he's 30. It's up there in age and whatnot for running backs, even though it's kind of crazy in itself how that's completely changed. So, but I think bringing Aaron Jones back on that 1-year deal, just a little, kind of around the same amount, maybe a little bit higher just because he played very well. The one thing I'm concerned about with Aaron Jones is I feel like he just kind of disappeared some games with an injury, and something weird or funky happens, and he's just not in there for some odd reason. It's weird. But if the Vikings decide to go that route and still bring back a guy like Cam Akers, I think that's a possibility too. So there's a lot of options at running back, but I feel like bringing back Aaron Jones help out the continuity there. All right, so this one I almost want to say is like 1A, 1B, but let's just call it number 2 because I'll talk about our number 1 here in a second. But willfries, this is a guy that the Vikings I think need to make a big move on. The fact that Trey Smith is out, the fact that Joe Tooney is gone, Jonah Jackson's gone. Now the Vikings can zero in on getting a guy like willfries. Now, a couple things that might hurt the Vikings a little bit. He's played 2 full seasons mostly, 2022, 2023, but this last season, he only played 3 games. He had an injury that took him out pretty much the rest of the season. And you wonder if he's still going to be where he was at in previous years. Now, I'm in the belief that the Minnesota Vikings are very interested now because you don't have those guard options at this point, unless they have a guy that we're not even thinking of right now. But I think willfries is a guy that was rising to elite status last season. So if the Vikings really want to say, listen, man, we know how good you are, unfortunate injury. I mean, it's kind of almost similar to what Darrisaw dealt with this past year. Freak injury. We know he's damn good. I think this could be a guy where the Vikings say, no, let's get him in here. He can be an asset for our Minnesota Vikings O-line. So I really hope that the Vikings make a push at him and get him to sign because KOC has addressed that we got to fix the interior. I think he will help immensely there. All right, let's talk about another interior defensive player from the other side of the ball. Milton Williams. This name has been linked to Minnesota for a long time now. Ever since the Super Bowl, this guy is a beast. He is a guy that I feel like in the middle can get that interior pressure that the Minnesota Vikings were lacking, unfortunately, the last part of this season. And when you add a guy like him, he had 5 sacks. He was awesome in the Super Bowl against the Kansas City Chiefs. This guy is somebody I feel the Vikings need to really make a big play on in order to help solidify the interior. Now, that's not to say that Harrison Phillips is bad or anything like that. I just think his strength is more in the run game, clogging up lanes and whatnot. He did have some interior pressure at the beginning of the season, but it dropped off significantly when the Vikings couldn't get anything interior. You had Van Ginkel on the outside. You had Grenard. It was great, right? But now you didn't really have any interior. As you can see, the Eagles, the Chiefs with Chris Jones, that interior, they're able to push that pocket, push those centers and guards back, and get a lot of pressure. If you add this young man to the Minnesota Vikings, you have interior pressure raring to go. And that's not to say that they can't go out and get, a young D tackle as well. I mean, if you pair him and whoever you want in the draft, you're in good shape. So I am calling for the Minnesota Vikings to go out and get a Milton Williams. So that is my top 6. These are my Infinity Stones: Patrickmekari, djreed, Jevonholland, Aaron Jones, willfries, and Milton Williams. Voldy. We'll get to our analysis of specific ones in a second, but let's get your list. Here is the drum roll, just because it's fun. We got to do it. Boom! Go ahead, Voldy.
I like how we were very similar in some of our choices, and I really went the opposite direction when it comes
That's okay.
to guys getting back on the team. And that's what I kind of went with, starting off with, of course, Harrison-Smith and Cambynum. I feel like having those two, if we get one last roll out of Harrison-Smith, it would probably be for the best. And the team is really peaking at the right time. Cambynum as well, still fairly young enough in the game, but still can be that veteran presence in the defensive backfield that can, prove to be a difference maker if the Vikings do decide to go young in the defensive secondary or try to build it through free agency. Also, another route that I went to is to go with a lot more in the running back game. And looking at it from the perspective of Aaron Jones, quite possibly Najee Harris, veteran running back help. And that's one thing that the Vikings could lean on a little bit if they decide to maybe even go after and draft a running back out of this year's draft too. I mean, where's Ashton Genty going to end up at with his high praises after this season? Having a guy like Aaron Jones or even Najee Harris in the locker room, because we already know what we're going to get with Aaron Jones. A lot of which of what we saw, and you brought it up too, Matt, was talking about he'd get injured. I mean, he'd start off the game, he'd be running the ball fairly effectively. Then it'd be like late second quarter, and then he would be off and on like every 2 or 3 series, it feels like, even into the second half. You'd hardly see him, or he'd be on the sideline getting his, quad looked at. He'd be, limping around with his ankle or something with his hamstring. Very, it was kind of an afterthought in the offense in the back half of the season for the Vikings. Najee Harris as well, a fresh start for him out of Pittsburgh would probably do him a lot of well, especially after, he got going with a good start to his career, but has kind of been forgotten after with the recent changes in their offense in the last couple of years. Milton Williams for me was definitely on the list for sure. Looking at a little bit more with the defensive line, of course, with the depth that Philadelphia has for them. Of course, with Sweat, with Jalen Carter too, Milton Williams is going to be, in a situation where he could quite possibly be the odd man out, and he is on a lot of high lists for free agents out there, with free agency starting here very, very soon. With the number 3, I really thought, of course, we could always talk about O-line, and that's why 2 of the 3 in the top half of my rankings were in that offensive line, of course, with Tevin Jenkins, who's really kind of reinvented himself after a tough start to his career in Chicago, but that's neither here nor there, or his fault for that matter, with Chicago being kind of a doomed franchise the last handful of seasons, but still has turned things around as of late, given the fact that the Bears were competitive in the front half of the season last year, but still had opportunities to get off a much better finish to the end of their season last year. Mehkibecton, I've always liked Mehkibecton as soon as he entered the league, of course, seeing him with the Jets to open up his career, and then somehow he ends up on the Eagles. And I always feel if you can play offensive line on the Eagles, you can play offensive line anywhere in the league. We've seen the success of the O-line for the Eagles in this half of this century has been nothing but superb, especially with the potentiality for all the Hall of Famers that'll come off that offensive line. And Mehkibecton just kind of sliding in there in that guard position. I believe he was the right guard for the Eagles this year. Him being out there as a free agent could definitely garner a lot of interest. And the dude is just straight up huge. I think 6'7", 6'8", or something like that.
He's a
playing
big
at the
boy.
guard position. He is quite big. I remember watching him on Hard Knocks with Aaronrodgers last year, and he was just towering over Aaronrodgers. And Aaronrodgers is no small guy to begin with either. And then, of course, we talked about it with the start of the program. It really all funnels into what are we going to do in pursuit of Sam Darnold. And I kind of gave my 2 cents about it. Do you want to win or do you want to get paid? Sam Darnold is, in unfamiliar territory in his career right now after a successful 14-3 season, ultimately 14-4. Unfortunately, those 2 losses at the end of the season for the Vikings and for him. But at that point, was really playing with house money and had nothing to lose. And unfortunately, the pressure did get to him. Offensive line had their troubles, missing wide open guys. That's in the rear view right now. But for Sam Darnold, there are a lot of things out on the table for him. Could he get that big contract, especially with very quarterback needy teams? A couple of changes in front offices, head coaches as well going towards the offensive side of things, and Sam Darnold, given the intangibles that he's had. Or you could look at it from the perspective, I was on a team that I had immediate success with. I have a head coach that is quite possibly one of the best minds in football right now from the offensive side, who came from, of course, one of the best offensive minds in football in Sean McVay. Kevin O'Connell, quarterback, kind of a rebuilding of a quarterback whisperer, if you will, to how that can benefit Sam Darnold even more. But giving him another year in this offense, of course, now having a fully healthy TJ Hawkinson, having Justin Jefferson once again, maybe a couple revamps in the running game on top of it, with, of course, another year of all the weapons he has around him, I think it would be stupid for Sam Darnold to not at least give it a solid look, if not saying, okay, I'm going to come in, I'm going to compete. That was the goal last year. It worked in my favor. I ended up winning 14 games for the first time in my career and surpassing my win total up until that point of my career. And if it doesn't work that way and they decide to go with the young guy, hey, I'm still in the NFL and I'm still getting paid. And it's going to be up to me to try and beat out the young guy on top of it. I feel like this would be a win-win situation for all parties. Of course, you get the insurance of having a veteran backup quarterback, quite possibly, or you get the guy that won you 14 games last year, rebuild that offensive line, add a couple more defensive strongholds to at least, perk up the numbers a little bit more for B-Flow, and quite possibly make the run of your lifetime in 2025. But Sam Darnold is going to be the key figure in all of it, if and when he does decide to re-sign with the Vikings.
And here's Voldy's ranks one more time for all the zoners. Harrisonsmith, Bynum, 6, 5, aaronjones, najeeharris, miltonwilliams, Tevin Jenkins, mehkibecton, Sam Darnold. A couple honorable mentions I kind of want to throw a couple ways here. Jonathan Allen has kind of been linked a little bit to the Vikings.
He has,
Commanders
yes.
as well.
I wouldn't be mad about that one.
I wouldn't be mad about that one either. The Vikings, I don't think, would trade for him, though, because I think the Commanders would release him, and the Vikings, I think, would make a play. I just don't think they have enough draft capital, and or I don't know if they have a player that they'd want. I don't know who they'd want, but I don't want the Vikings to have to give up too much, especially a lot of draft compensation, because they don't have a lot. So Jonathan Allen's been linked. Another guy that's looking for a trade, could possibly being released, Cooper Kupp. That is another guy that could be very, very interesting. And I know he's had some injuries and whatnot, but think about it. Jefferson, Addison, Kupp. But addressing those needs first, right? You gotta think about that. Him and KOC work together. And another guy that I feel like could be a possibility. I think this is a huge stretch. All right, I'm just throwing this out there because this would be amazing if the Vikings were able to pull it off. But a D-end is looking for a new home too, and that being Myles Garrett. I think they want too much for the Vikings would have to give up a lot. Especially their future, to get Myles Garrett on this team.
You could just pull the old Los Angeles Rams and let
F them picks.
You know what? F them picks. Roll into a Super Bowl championship. Pay for the next 6 or 7 seasons. But hey, we got the Lombardi back in 2025.
Exactly. I love the way you're thinking there. So, and I think corner's a big thing too. Paulson Adebo, I feels like a guy that would work. A guy that I hope they kind of bring back, Shaq Griffin. I feel like he was very underrated for the Vikings this past year. And Mekhi Blackmon coming back, too, and he was very promising before he got injured, lost for the whole season, his rookie year. And then technically you can kind of, say this is his second year, even though technically it is his third coming up here. But, hey, you have that in your back pocket. One more guy, Charvarius Ward, I think would be a nice fit for the Vikings as well. Because I think San Fran's ready to move on from some guys and kind of retool the San Francisco 49ers. So let's so I will say for your list, Voldy, and then you can give your thoughts on mine. I was debating on mehkibecton. I feel like all signs are pointing to him going back to Philly, but who knows? If he is off that, if they're like, nah, we can't re-sign him, then yeah, I would put him up there with Fries if they can with mehkibecton at guard. Harry Bynum, of course, we want back. I love that. Milton Williams. I mean, it's hard to, argue with this list. Tevin Jenkins, I would like to steal from the Bears and whatnot. It seems like they don't need him anymore. So, I mean, it's right there for the taking for the Vikings. So I wouldn't be mad at any of those. That is for sure. What do you got for mine here, Voldy?
I mean, I definitely like the combination you have with Williams and Fries right at the beginning there. I think that's definitely a good note. And, of course, with Aaron Jones, too, just adding to that, the running game especially, I feel like has to be a little bit more emphasis. It's been kind of a bit of an afterthought. Of course, Jones did start off hot in the season for the Vikings and at least alleviating a little bit of pressure with the passing game. But when they needed a run game in the latter months of the season, it was hard to come by for the Vikings. I do like djreed. That is a sneaky one right there. He's a very physical corner, and that's kind of one thing the Vikings have been missing for some time, is having a physical defensive presence beyond the days of course, Harrisonsmith and Andrew Sendejo, who was literally headhunting every play to try and knock guys out. Right. I like that for sure. That's definitely a sneaky one because you know that he's going to get lost in the shuffle, of course, with Sauce Gardner on the other side in New York with the Jets. But I definitely like the list overall. It's definitely solid.
Hopefully you get at least one or two, maybe even three. I'd love any of our lists for both of us, I feel like, if we were able to land all these guys.
If we could hit on a couple of these, that'd be great.
Yeah, I'd love that as well. So the Wolves are winning right now, 108-90 in the fourth. So let's keep it going, Wolves. Get that dub. So that'll do it for Infinity Rankings of this go-around. And free agency, we will keep you up to date on the socials medias throughout the week and next week as well. So a lot to be said, and we will, even right now, I mean, Voldy, something could happen right now and we could be,
who knows?
Be on call here. So that'll do it for Infinity Rankings tonight. We're talking about the big trade in the NFL. Deebo going to the Washington Commanders. From the 49ers to the Commanders. And Aaronrodgers linked to Vegas. Pete Carroll, the boys over there, Tom Brady. Interesting. And then we've got Robmanfred reviewing the Roses family's reinstatement bid. We will have a lot to say about that. I know Voldy does there. Kyrieirving out the rest of the season towards ACL. The Mavs are in a tailspin, that is for sure. And to round things off, no hard knocks for the Tar Heels and Bill Belichick. We'll talk about that as well. So, with that being said, let's get it going. What's up? Absurd or approved?
It's time for everyone's favorite segment, Absurd or Approved.
All right, it is time for Absurd or Approved. So, Voldy, why don't you rattle off for us, please?
Starting in the world of the NFL, a big splash in free agency, or soon to be. Well, it is the San Francisco 49ers of taking a page and maybe turning the page on their possible future by sending standout wide receiver Deebosamuel to the Washington Commanders for exchange for a 5th-round pick. Now, Washington will also be taking the remainder of Deebo's contract of $17.55 million for the 2025 season. Of course, that is coming off a unfortunate season for the San Francisco 49ers, where they were banged up in many ways. Of course, their running game suffering the most with Deebo, and of course, Christian McCaffrey hurt. George Kittle battled his own injuries. Brandon Ayuk was lost before the start of the season, and a downward spiral ever since then. So maybe a retooling of San Francisco, starting with the departure of Deebosamuel, who has been nothing short of a yards after catch king the last couple of seasons, and been a huge impact for those Super Bowl runs and deep postseason runs for San Francisco in recent seasons. Of course, now this could really turn the page and maybe a chip on the shoulder for Deebo, as he, at one point, a leading contender for, of course, a major contract, and also a chip on the shoulder for him to prove that San Francisco was wrong. So is it absurd or approved? Will Deebo be able to flourish in DC as a Commander coming this season?
Oof. Well, he got his wish. He definitely went and got the trade. This is a great thing for the Washington Commanders, nonetheless. You see what happens when you have an organization that is down to earth, knows what they need to do to improve. And when you have a guy like Dan Quinn, who's been proven to be a very good head coach, you've had different ownership and everything like that, for them to go and get another weapon for Jaden Daniels, especially how he played this past season, this is perfect. This is a perfect fit for Deebo. Him, Scary Terry. There's just another facet to your offense. I mean, he runs like a running back, too. He's had some injury problems. I think that's a little bit worrisome if you are a Commanders fan. But when he is playing and when he is healthy, he is a very, very good player. I would say it's got my stamp of approval. I think he is going to be a key asset to the Washington Commanders. Their run game is pretty good with Brian Robinson, as well as Austin Eckler. You add Deebosamuel to the mix with Scary Terry, with Noah Brown, who had a pretty good season. Zach Ertz is kind of, on the outs a little bit, but he played very well this season, I will say, for the Commanders. And even in the draft, I mean, they're just going to keep adding weapons. I mean, they're a team on the come up. That is for sure. Adding a guy like Deebo to the Commanders. If I'm Philly, if I'm Dallas, and if I'm the Giants here, I mean, I'm kind of thinking to myself, oh crap, they're starting to get up there. If you're the Eagles, if you're the Cowboys, and Giants, they're kind of surpassing you at this point. So yeah, it's got my stamp of approval. I think he'll do just fine in DC. So Voldy, what do you think?
I mean, this was as much of a win for Washington as possible. Of course, they're looking to make a splash here after the run that they had this season, given the fact that they had some players really step up in a few different ways. Of course, with, the emergence of Jaden Daniels, giving him another weapon is going to be a huge benefit at making another run this upcoming season. Of course, Scary Terry McLaurin. Now you add Deebo alongside with that. You can put him in the slot. You can put him wide out, far out as well. That's going to open up things for, of course, for Deebo if, Terry's going to be getting the ball, and vice versa on top of that. You can put Deebo in the backfield. Him and Brian Robinson side by side there, I think, would be a very deadly combination, and just allow Jaden Daniels the, proper amount of receivers needed, and at least weapons offensively, to be much more competitive on top of that. But of course, with with all that thrown into the mix, San Francisco, I think they're kind of in a stage right now where it is make or break for them, and they knew that they weren't going to be able to pay Deebo, beyond what the current situation that they had, even after a breakout last couple of seasons for him. Of course, he did battle injuries. I mean, this season alone, he dealt with calf, wrist, oblique, and rib injuries, and also was sick at one point, which cost him 2 games and parts of other games. So probably in total, maybe about 3.5, 4 total games where he was, not 100%. And those came at critical times where it was make or break for the Niners this season in a couple different areas. Of course, you throw Christian McCaffrey and his whole situation on top of that, where he was hurt, then he came back, then he got hurt again. It all just went downhill from that point. This is definitely a win, and I think Deebo being back on the East Coast for sure is going to be a huge benefit for him, and I feel like Washington is definitely going to be something to reckon with this upcoming season.
That's for sure, and it frees up some cap space for the Niners as well.
Exactly.
So see how it turns out. All right, we're sticking with the NFL. Voldy.
Well, in conversations most recently taking place on his podcast, now recently re-signed defensive end for the Las Vegas Raiders, Max Crosby, said that hopes of bringing veteran quarterback Aaron Rodgers to play in 2025 would be, quote, legendary. Of course, with the troubles that the Raiders have had with quarterbacks, including this past season, finishing 4-13 with Gardner Minshew, Aiden O'Connell, and Desmond Ridder, of all people. Just seeing that Gardner Minshew did get released this season, and the signs that Matthew Stafford has re-signed with the Los Angeles Rams, that quarterback market is shrinking ever so quickly. Of course, announcing that Aaron Rodgers and the Jets will not be coming back together for the 2025 season as they have a new head coach, does leave the door open for, of course, the Las Vegas Raiders. Of course, new head coach Pete Carroll. You bring in Chip Kelly as your offensive coordinator. You do have a defense that is certainly making a name for itself in recent years, of course, led by Max Crosby. And, of course, you've got the ownership, not only with Mark Davis being the primary owner, you've got Tom Brady. You've also got Richard Seymour, who's in on the minority stakes on the team. But with all that being said, Aaron Rodgers comes with his own baggage. And, well, I'm not going to say it's Louis, but it's definitely baggage. Probably some sort of, I don't know what the hippies use to carry their luggage with, rucksacks or whatever, canvas bags they got out of the surf shops or whatever. But that's what's got all of Aaron Rodgers' baggage in right now. So with all that being thrown into the mix, Rodgers and Las Vegas, is it absurd or approved? Would Aaron Rodgers in Las Vegas be a perfect fit?
It's tough for me to say perfect because the thing is, and it's not because we all know how I feel about Aaron Rodgers and everything like that, but I wouldn't say it'd be a perfect fit. I would say this, though. It's the best fit out of the current situation. You look at the New York Giants that has been linked to him. I think that would be a huge mistake if the New York Giants decided to go after one Aaron Rodgers. I think that would be a mistake for them. They need a lot of help, and I don't think adding an old-ass QB like Aaron Rodgers into the mix would be a smart idea. But for Las Vegas, I think this would be more of a good fit, ideal fit for Aaron Rodgers. And the reason why I say that is because, look, you have Brady there around, and, obviously to kind of keep him in check a little bit. Pete Carroll's a great coach. I mean, he's well-liked by the players and everything like that. But the one thing I question is Chip Kelly. I'm not sold on him being a good OC, to be honest with you. Coming from the college game and now he's back in the NFL for some odd reason. I don't understand it, but, is he a good offensive mind? Sure, but I just don't see him and Aaron Rodgers clicking. That's just tough for me to think about. But it's better than any of the other fits. And we all know he ain't coming to Minnesota, and we don't want him here. And he probably does know that by now. But I think if they were able to bring Rodgers with, I could see him saying, well, what about a reunion with Devontae and everything? It's like, it'd be kind of weird, but, at the same time, him and Devontae are pretty good friends. So I'd say absurd on perfect fit. I would say ideal, good fit, the best out of current situations right now, because a lot of teams aren't willing to pull the trigger because, again, the guy looked like an old, decrepit old man, if I'm being completely honest. I mean, it just wouldn't make sense. But I think this would be a good fit, not a perfect fit. So, Voldy, what do you got?
Yeah, there's a lot of things that can go into this. Of course, with Aaron Rodgers and all his baggage, that also does bring up, does Davante Adams come back to Vegas after, getting released and getting sent over to the Jets in the middle of last season? Does that come with it too? Does Chip Kelly, of course, kind of stuck in his ways with the run-pass option, very quick up-tempo style offense? Does that continue on? Or does Chip Kelly adjust his offense to whoever's taking the snap of the football? Does Aaron Rodgers want to play closer to L.A. and, of course, in his native Northern California to be closer to home and everybody that has not had a lot of kind things to say about Aaron Rodgers over the years? There are definitely a lot of things that can go into it. I think with Aaron Rodgers, he's at a point in his career now, of course, whether he definitely still wants to play, but is it going to be an opportunity for him to be able to play? Now, if you ask me, a Chip Kelly offense, what quarterback out there is going to be running it? I would probably say either Russell Wilson, who is a former Pete Carroll disciple up in Seattle, or Justin Fields, quite possibly. Athletic, can definitely be a mobile quarterback, find plays downfield if needed. But you definitely, if this was Aaron Rodgers 5-6 years ago, I could definitely say, you know what, give it a shot, see what happens. Now we're dealing with Aaron Rodgers after Achilles surgery, spotty second half of the season, spotty season overall for Rodgers too. I don't know if exactly a perfect fit. Would it be a fit? Sure, why not? I think him being in Vegas is definitely the circus type of atmosphere that he is probably accustomed to and would definitely be able to thrive in for sure. On the field, we'll certainly see about it, especially in a division where you're going up against Denver. You're going up against, Kansas City. You're going up against the Chargers too. Last time I checked, those teams are no slouches in the AFC West.
That is for sure. Lucas says Rodgers would be the last QB I would want. Me too. You're not winning a ship with him, period. Exactly. I mean, you're not. And I think if Vegas was smart, they'd be like, okay, he probably, if we're going to really gamble, pun intended, here with the Raiders, you have to hope he's got 1 year out of it. But now then you got to look at another quarterback. I mean, it seems like they're keeping Aiden O'Connell and whatnot, but I would not want him anywhere near the state of Minnesota. That is for sure. Mm-hmm. So I agree with Lucas. So, all right, next one, Voldy.
Well, we head to the world of Major League Baseball, and Commissioner Robmanfred is considering a petition filed earlier this year by the family of the late Pete Rose, the Major League Baseball's all-time hits leader, to be removed from Major League Baseball's ineligible list in hopes that they could seek induction into the National Baseball Hall of Fame, which has been a desire of the family and, of course, Pete Rose, ever since he was banned from baseball back in 1989, and everything that has changed since then when it comes to the world of gambling, and especially gambling on sports. Of course, sadly, it was Pete Rose who did pass away at the age of 83 back in September, has fought tooth and nail ever since he got banned from baseball back in 1989, up until the day that he died, that he wanted to be reinstated into baseball. And unfortunately, recent efforts have fallen by the wayside. Of course, most recently in 2015, Rose was rejected by by Robmanfred in a reinstatement petition after meeting with him, and things did not look good at that point. Now, with Pete Rose passing away and those major contributors that have kind of really held Pete Rose out of the Hall of Fame during his time when he was alive, and those that were alive, now that they're gone away, maybe this could quite possibly open up the door for Pete Rose to make his way into the hallowed halls of Cooperstown, New York. Now, is it absurd or approved? Should Pete Rose be reinstated into baseball so that way he could be properly inducted into the Hall of Fame?
I want to say it like this. It's very interesting to me that they do this now after he's died. And it's like, okay, he's all gone. We don't have to listen to him, talk about how, he should be in and things like that. That is such a mean way to do it. And granted, did he make mistakes? Absolutely. But was it to a point to where he was just betting on his own team, I believe, if I'm not mistaken.
Never bet his own. No, he never bet on his own team. It was other teams. He bet on baseball, but he never bet on his own team. At least that's what
never bet on. Gotcha. Yeah, that's the other way. Whatever, however it was. But again, this is a situation to where the guy is the hits king. And it kind of got to the point where it's just like, well, you denied him in 2015 and everything like that. Look, let bygones be bygones here, people. And they didn't want to do that when he was alive. But then Manfred reviewing Rose's family's reinstatement bid now. And it's like, that's just such a scummy way to do it after he passes away back in September like we were talking about. And now they decide, we'll review it, see how it goes. I just think people they don't want to accept that he was a hell of a player. And the fact that he, was denied for so long and then, ends up unfortunately passing away not to see that happen. And it's like, well, the least we can do is put him in now. It's because you're going to be fighting this for long if you deny it again. The family's not going to forget that. It's that simple. So, I think it's got my stamp of approval. I think he should be reinstated and be willing to, or obviously MLB be willing to put him back to where he deserves into baseball and Hall of Fame. The numbers are there. So. All right, Voldy, what do you think?
Now, we all know that my stance on the Baseball Hall of Fame, of course, when it comes to steroids and those that have been held out of the game of baseball due to the fact that they did take steroids. Now, you stand on, of course, now you've got the all-time home runs leader. You've got the all-time winner in Cy Youngs and one of the major contributors in strikeouts during his career, and the all-time hits leader out of the Hall of Fame, and is as much of a hypocrite, a bunch of hypocrites are the National Baseball Writers Association of America. There really is no other sport that when it comes to the Hall of Fame, election to the Hall of Fame is solely based on a bunch of guys hiding behind their computer screens, as opposed to other leagues that have a combination of writers, the past veterans and alumni, owners, guys that were major contributors to the sport. Baseball is still in the dark age when it comes to electing members of their Hall of Fame based off of a bunch of guys that probably have never even picked up a bat and played competitively, but rather talk about it and acting as if they know what the hell that is actually going on top of it. Now I digress. Going back to Robmanfred, a lot of people that have come up to me asking about this, and I say, absolutely, Pete Rose should be in the Hall of Fame. Yes, he made a mistake. Well, half the guys in the Hall of Fame have probably been drunk, beat their wives, beat their kids, took drugs on top of it, and guess what? Nobody's got anything bad to say about them. In recent years, there's been a lot of Hall of very good players in the Hall of Fame on top of it. I won't start naming names, but there's definitely a lot of guys based off of the years that we've seen when nobody's gotten the Hall of Fame. Now we got to start, watering down the gene pool of Hall of Famers just to make sure everybody feels good on top of it. The fact that Pete Rose has to die in order for him to get in the Hall of Fame is probably one of the bigger injustices in the world of sport within itself. The fact that you have President Trump also commenting on quite possibly signing a complete pardon of Pete Rose for gambling on baseball. And if that doesn't sway Rob Manfred's opinion, there'll certainly be a lot of backlash on top of it. Of course, there are a lot of people out there celebrating Pete Rose. Of course, the Cincinnati Reds, the team he spent a majority of his career with, will be honoring Pete Rose this upcoming season, of course, with patches on their jersey. But I think Pete Rose deserves to be in the Hall of Fame for everything that he did in the game of baseball as the all-time hits leader. Yes, he did bet on baseball. But look at how the world has changed in such a short amount of time when it comes to gambling and in sports. All four major sports leagues are basically the games that happen during the season and how you can actually make money off of them by gambling. It's turned completely upside down when you had to hide behind. Nowadays, I mean, if you look back 15, 20 years ago, you knew somebody that was gambling on sports, you would think that they were a scummy, low-life degenerate. Now, I can't go 5 minutes in my day without hearing about somebody that's like looking at the over-under for, tonight's basketball game, or looking at how much money they want to win with the March Madness tournaments. Sports gambling has taken over the world and is completely ridiculous. I don't get it. I rather gamble with my life than with my money. At least at the end of the day, I know that my pocket is going to be full as opposed to the latter. I think Pete Rose deserves to be in the Hall of Fame. That is 100% sure. That reinstatement bid should be accepted, and we can all move on with our lives. Sadly, Pete Rose wouldn't be able to make that speech at Hall of Fame induction in Cooperstown, New York. But at least there'll be something that could maybe bring his spirit at peace and make the world of baseball just a little bit better on top of it.
I couldn't agree more. It's just sad that it had to be this way too. So It is what it is at this point. All right, next one, Voldy.
Well, we head to the world of the association, the NBA. It's been a rough few weeks for the Dallas Mavericks coming off the heels of the big one-sided trade of Luka Doncic to the LA Lakers in exchange for a couple players, including Anthony Davis. Now the Mavericks were dealt another blow with all-star player Kyrieirving suffering a season-ending torn ACL in his left knee. Now, the 32-year-old suffered the injury late Monday night in the game against the Sacramento Kings, which ended up being a loss. Now, it's been a tough go as of late for the Dallas Mavericks, of course, with the trade of Luka Doncic. General Manager Nico Harrison is having a rough bout as of late. Of course, fans that have been attending Dallas Mavericks games have been calling for his head to be fired, including those fans that continue to get kicked out of games for said comments being made and mass hysteria on top of it. Now, with the odds of the defending Western Conference champions dwindling with each day that goes by, with the loss of Doncic, with the loss of Kyrieirving, and Anthony Davis continues to battle the injury bug as of late, not a lot of things are looking right for the Dallas Mavericks. Of course, now with their general manager going to be probably taking the brunt of the pain on top of it. Is it absurd or approved with the injury of Kyrieirving and everything else that's gone on this season? Is it absurd or approved? Nico Harrison will not be retained as GM after this season based off everything that's gone on this current season.
Well, it would be very interesting if they said adios, especially after what he pulled. He said, we'll see if I'm right and everything like that with the whole Doncic trade and whatnot. But losing Kyrie, I think, is obviously not his fault and everything like that. Anthony Davis gets injured. I mean, there's all these injuries that happen with Dallas, and it doesn't mean that they can't go out in free agency or do some, trading at the end of the season to add some pieces. So I'd probably say it's absurd. I just don't think, based off of that, I feel like they have to give it a little bit of time before this goes any further. But if it gets really bad after next season or during the season, even next year, it wouldn't surprise me if they got rid of him. And, a lot of people are calling him, an idiot for doing that and, X, Y, and Z. And, I mean, the Mavericks are in win now mode. And, based off when they traded Doncic and got Anthony Davis, it just kind of showed, okay, Kyrie, Anthony Davis, Klay Thompson, this is a legit, threat to win the West. Now it's not at all because now they're just going to slide. They'll probably be in a free fall here these next few weeks. And I just don't think, based off of everything with Kyrie going down, you can't necessarily blame him for that. But you can, if you're Dallas, blame him for the Doncic trade and whatnot, and especially their concerns that they had with Luka Doncic and whatnot, and I think it's warranted to some degree. But I also know that he's a damn good player, so maybe trying talking to him and working with him instead of just saying, "No, we don't believe him. See ya," But I'd say it's absurd at this point. I just just to give him a year to kind of maybe either right that wrong or say, "See, call me an idiot now." Is kind of a main thing from that. So I would probably say, yeah, I think it's absurd. I don't think that he's gonna move on. They're gonna move on from him after the season, unless they're really pissed about it still and are like, "Nope, you're done, out of here." So, Voldy, what do you think?
I know if Mark Cuban was still owner of the team, his ass would have been grass at the All-Star break, just based off of. I don't even know if that Doncic trade would have happened with everything that's gone on this season for them. Now you throw in the fact that Anthony Davis hasn't been 100% since the trade. Of course, you lose Kyrie. For a team that was supposed to be, building off of the success of last season, that kind of semi came out of nowhere with the Mavericks and all the way to the NBA Finals. Definitely a surprise in my mind for sure with the addition of Kyrie in Dallas, but it doesn't help Nico Harrison, at least in the eyes of fans, too, when you've got fans that are basically asking for his head. I remember seeing one clip most recently with a fan on the Jumbotron mouthing the words, "Fire Nico," and 5 minutes later, he was being escorted out the building. I mean, that's just, the fact that they're going to the lengths of which to kick out fans for putting up "Fire Nico" signs and saying "Fire Nico." You got LA Laker fans saying "Thank you, Nico" on top of it. I mean, it is just completely crazy to see how this season is all played out for Dallas. If Mark Cuban was still owner, yes, he would definitely get let go. But I feel even with the injury of Kyrie, and you throw in, of course, Anthony Davis once he gets settled into Dallas too, it could be a team to reckon with maybe next season. But right now, it's all trying to find a new identity for Dallas. I don't think he'll get let go. I think he'll be retained for at least another season for sure. So I think it's absurd. I don't think he'll get let go this year.
Then he can prove to the fans that, hey, look, I'm not an idiot. I can get this done. So,
exactly.
Yeah, I mean, but who knows? He could be gone at the end of the season, and we could be proven. All right, last one, Voldy.
Well, the world of Hard Knocks and, of course, NFL films has been centered around the world of the NFL, of course, with its preseason and training camp efforts to see what's all behind the scenes. But recent reports did come out that quite possibly under head coach Bill Belichick, University of North Carolina and their football program could be slated to take the subject of HBO's Hard Knocks off-season, most especially. Of course, with the mixed reviews, if you certainly will say, for the Giants off-season edition of Hard Knocks, that bolstered one of the most viral clips of the NFL season last year. Well, unfortunately, North Carolina will not be taking the reins with head coach Bill Belichick and their new coaching staff in what is translating to be the pro version of college football, as it was announced that North Carolina will not be featured in this year's show. and was later asked, of course, with general manager for the Tar Heels football program, Michael Lombardi, saying that they had not signed with the university or the program. There are a lot of offers out there, and to come look at the program as well. But it looks like that we will have to at least wait for maybe another avenue with Bill Belichick and, of course, the UNC football program. Of course, the off-season edition of Hard Knocks definitely filled that void for football during the dead time between the Super Bowl and, of course, with training camp leading up in the summer. Is it absurd or approved, especially when it comes to Hard Knocks and kind of the ever-changing world of college football now kind of becoming a little bit more semi-professional? Is it absurd or approved? Should other college football programs be considered for possible Hard Knocks programs in the future?
I don't see a problem. Why not? I think it'd be interesting to see it from a collegiate level and everything like that. The question is how far would they go into it? Like, are they going to go full season? Like a training camp type of deal and whatnot. It would be interesting to see Bill Belichick and Hard Knocks, and I'm sure he would be very loud and things like that. But I also know he'd probably be mumbling half the time and not doing interviews and just saying, "Get away from me! I'm trying to do my job." That whole deal. But yeah, I think other teams should do that. It'd be cool to see PJ Fleck do some things there too for a Hard Knocks college for the Gophers there. That'd be fun. Or a team like the Gators or maybe the LSU. That would be an interesting one too. Just kind of rattling off some key teams. Clemson would be another good one as well. Florida State. Et cetera, et cetera. I would probably, it's got my stamp of approval. I think that would be an interesting thing to see it from a college level, see how things go. So, yeah, stamp of approval. Voldy, what do you think?
I think a lot of which with the Hard Knocks offseason was trying to really strike while the iron was hot when it came to Bill Belichick, of course, making the transition to college football and bringing a lot of guys that have coached or been part of these pro teams, front offices in the past. How's that translate now to the new world of college football with NIL, with the transfer portal, and how that all plays with basically, contracts and even, free agency, for lack of a better term, with the transfer portal and how that can, kind of be the college version of free agency. How that all plays out, it's going to be unfortunate that we won't get that chance, but I could definitely see, whether it be off season or training camp or even in season, how college can't be, overlooked. A lot of major programs that have changed in the recent years, of course, now with the University of Alabama, you've seen the growth and success of Notre Dame in recent years. How does Oregon fit into the mix, and how a lot of these new coaches and coaches that are climbing up the ranks of powerhouse programs and how they really all set themselves different from their competitors. I would definitely not have a problem with it. I think it's definitely got my stamp of approval. Any more Hard Knocks, the better, honestly, because we all love the preseason, the training camp one. The off season was a little bit of a different look, but definitely filled that void. And of course, the in season is always good to see, because we always want to know what's going on behind the scenes during the year. And it's always unfortunate that with the training camp version of Hard Knocks, it always ended after the final preseason game. You just gotta wait and see how the full season played out.
Yeah, and it's got, I just feel like, that off-season one with the Giants, just completely screwed them.
Egg on their face.
Yeah, the thing is you better be good, because if you're not, oh boy, you're in for a rude awakening. All right. That being said, great job with ARA, as always,
Thank
Voldy.
you, sir.
We got some shield shout-outs tonight. Got some really cool. I got a really cool shout-out, especially for Voldy here, especially involving this team. So I say we get it going with some shield shout-outs.
Shield shoutouts.
All right, Shield, who you shouting out tonight?
Well, we start off, of course, I just do want to say a word of thank you to everybody over the last week plus that has sent kind words to my family. Unfortunately, the passing of my grandpa, Dave Vold, who did pass away this week and a half ago, and, was definitely not a cornerstone of the Vold family for sure. Spent a lot of years up in Hatton, North Dakota, a lot of summers enjoying time with family, and of course the major part of the community that he was as an educator, a coach, an athlete, and of course just being a major figure of the church there in Hatton. Sadly, we did lay to rest my grandpa yesterday. For all those that did come and celebrate his life with the prayer service on Monday night, and of course the funeral service that took place on Tuesday. I do have to say a big thank you to everybody that sent out the kind words, the sympathies, the flowers, the messages as well. A big thank you as well to Pastor Bruce Vold, who is my dad's cousin, so be my second cousin as well. Who's the pastor of the St. John's Lutheran in Hatton, North Dakota, who is also my grandpa's godson as well. He did a fantastic job of remembering my grandpa and everybody that has been helpful through this tough time. My dad, my Aunt Jane, my grandma as well were all there, to remember grandpa, and just want to say thank you again to everybody for the kind words through this tough time. And that definitely did not go unnoticed, and being able to, see a lot of extended family come together from all over the country to come to to remember grandpa is definitely a very welcome sight, and definitely appreciate everybody coming together at that time. On a little bit of a lighter note, do want to say thank you to and shout out to Caleb Alderson of the Granite City Lumberjacks for being part of my first ever hockey fight call, and let's just certainly say made the most out of it and made it worth it for sure. If you haven't seen it on social media, on Facebook alone, I think we're well over 4,000 views already, and definitely give yourself a minute to check it all out. And also on a little bit of a lighter note, of course, leading up to my grandpa's funeral service, a lot of family came over and said, hey, so sorry for your loss, for everything. But hey, watch the video of the fight call or whatever. We watched it like 10 times last night. It was awesome and fantastic. Love the call, and just great to see. And you know what? Certainly made the most out of it. And I think we're going to be got some things in the works to properly memorialize that fight too as well. So definitely be on the lookouts for some things coming up. That's going to do it for Shield Shoutouts this week.
And it's time for Shield Shoutouts. Ka-shing, ka-shing.
Throw out a throwback for you. Yes. First of all, that was an awesome call. I did listen to it at least more than once, and it was fantastic. Well done, Shield. For sure. And yeah, I mean, it was a good fight too. I enjoyed it. It was awesome. Yeah, well, first of many, I would say.
Hopefully.
So.
But also not at the same time. We'll see.
Yeah, exactly. Yes, obviously I saw the sad news as well, and obviously condolences to you and all of the Vold family as well, and everyone associated. It's never easy, and I definitely know what it's like to lose grandparents and stuff like that. So prayers out to the Vold family and you, and obviously everybody there. So with that being said, guys, that's going to do it for episode 229. Voldy, I have one question for you. I forgot to do this earlier, but I do have one question for you. We usually put out the link and whatnot, and for the show. I have a question, and I just want to make sure we're in the right dealio here. You said free agency, or as I like to call it, how are the Vikings going to screw this up season? What does that mean? What?
You know exactly what that means. Every year, there are top-notch free agents that the Vikings can go out and sign. Do they do it? More times than not, no. Just saying. This is Minnesota sports, man. They don't go after the big fish. They never go after the big fish. They always go after the guppies around the pond.
Well, I mean, Kirk was a big fish. Jared Allen.
Fair enough.
A big fish. And things like that.
Kirk Cousins 7 seasons ago. Jared Allen,
True.
15 seasons ago.
It's
I
true,
mean,
but again,
at
cap
minimum.
space, things like that factor in. I don't know. I just wanted to make sure. That's the main thing. But we'll see. Again, this is a big one. I mean, they have the cap space. Hey, let's go make those splashes, right? They did last year. Gink.
They did.
Grenard, things like that. So, but anyway, just wanted to clear and make sure we got that in there as well. Great job with Shield Shoutouts, obviously, as well. Guys, we got merch. We got plenty of merch. And actually, before we get into that, Voldy, we do have our final version of the logo. Yes, it is not this one necessarily per se. It's a little bit, but it gives you the idea. We will put that out there again so you can check it out. Merch coming your way quite soon. So keep an eye out. And we got the sweatpants, we got the shirts, we got the quarter zips, we got the winter caps. There's still snow on the freaking ground. I don't love it.
Second winter. Here we are.
I mean, you might need it. That's the thing.
And yet it's going to be 55 on Sunday in St. Cloud. What are we doing here?
I don't get it. Man.
Get it.
It's crazy in itself. We got stickers as well. Make sure you let us know if you like some. Thinking National Fleet Graphic, Ground Rental, Tyler Knutson for the stickers. And check out our guy, Will Rattel. Looking very Will Rattel-esque. I mean, I feel like he's in his own league with how fit he is. Check out www.w2performance.com. Check out all his stuff. He's a very busy guy. Make sure you check him out. The Brotherly Ballers podcast, Tyler Herman, Jack Vickers. Make sure you check those guys out. TLS Performance, Troy Stoudemire Jr. Make sure you check out his stuff. Speaking of well fit, he is as well. And then check out Popcorn Bucket List with our Nick Dahlhoff and Ryan Marburg, Omni Entertainment. They just had their Oscar
show. The
live
Oscar show was lit.
Yes,
I loved it.
I watched a little of it. Our good friend Mitch Ribby was on. I wish they would have read my comment about and asked him how his Bears did this past year. But I did talk to Mitch today, actually, saying, hey, you guys are wheeling and dealing, and he's saying, you guys better watch out in the north. We'll see. You might have gotten a couple guards, but, again, you need more than that. You need more than that, Mitchie. That's all I got to say to you. So, make sure you check out PBL, Popcorn Bucket List. New episode probably coming out this week. So, with that being said, that'll do it. Episode 229. Free agency, we will keep you up to date on that. The Wolves did end up winning tonight over the Charlotte Hornets. The Wolves get that done. And, we'll keep an eye on everything, and we will be on the socials media. So, without further ado, as always, folks, keep in the zone.
Holla.
Thank you for watching MinneZona Sports Live. Join us Wednesdays at 7 p.m. for live show broadcast. And as Voldy likes to say, follow us on all the socials medias.